than in Krefeld. Because if you can bring that level, I think we're in for a treat.
Well, we're going to have to see, because his opponent is one of the best, if not the best player in Europe right now. He's for Team Liquid. It's Clem.
Some would even go further than Europeo. In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the Flying Dutchman representing the Shopify Rebellion. Is this his moment? Is this his season? And perhaps will this be the year of Harstem?
So, Roddy, are you trying to tell me that there are people that would argue that Clem is the best player in the world?
Absolutely.
I mean, you want to talk about a way to get the Maru fans mad.
Yeah, well, it is what it is, right? Maru was in Atlanta as well, I believe, no? Towards the end of 2023.
He was,
Maru could have played Clem in the WTL Code S playoffs when they had their tournament live on the line and they needed to revive someone. They went for Young instead of Maru, so, you know, maybe Maru also thinks Clem is very scary. Who knows?
I have no idea, but, you know, you talk about that run from Clem. That Atlanta run was something special, right? The series against Cyril, I mean, he smashed Dark. That wasn't as impressive, or that wasn't as exciting, but his run in Atlanta was, I mean, he was the best player, at least at that tournament, and it was pretty cool to see him reach that apotheosis. But, you know, it's another season, another day. Yeah, he topped his group. Harstem didn't. But, yeah, who knows? I believe. I choose to believe.
Clem also wins every single Monday Night Weekly these days. I think he won 3 out of the last 4. Only lost on his birthday. It's kind of sad. He had his birthday 3 Mondays ago, and that is the one that he lost against Max Specs. The week before he won, and the 2 weeks after that he won. So apparently his birthday is the weakest day of the year, but on every other day Clem is a god and he doesn't lose.
I mean, it makes sense, right? You know, it's your birthday. You're gonna go out with friends. You're focusing less on. Well, I guess, you know, on the flip side, right? You want to win extra that week, so you got a little extra spending money when you go out. Although I guess if you got good friends, you should. That's the one day you don't have to worry about you know, affording the beers.
Maybe he went out very early because he actually played the American Weekly after the European Weekly as well. So I don't know when he went out, but maybe Friends is just absolutely popping off at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and that's why Clem wasn't Clem that day. Who knows?
He just got kidnapped, or he's like playing on your laptop from a nice park. Like, no, Clem, it's your birthday. You're not allowed to be in the house anymore.
Clem was actually sitting at that roundabout next to the Champs-Élysées and the Notre Dame, and it's like, who's that little kid with his laptop? It's Clem. He made it to the finals of the weekly. Impressive, but couldn't win it that day. But yeah, let's see. We have exactly. He's like, man, these old school mice are difficult, you know? He's like, anybody have a mouse without a ball? They're like, no, that's your birthday present, man. You got a mouse from the 90s. He's like, oh no, it's difficult. We have Stargate first coming out of Harstem. Let's hope it's not an Oracle. I don't want to see Oracles. And it is not. It is a Phoenix. I can live with that. The only thing is, though, that a single Phoenix does not really keep you safe against Reapers and Hellions. But 3 Adepts and multiple shield batteries will. So far, I think so good for the captain. There are 2 Hellions in the natural, and that's something you're going to have to respect. The probes are clumping up. Clem is getting good shots off. I am so happy there was a shield battery there.
I was gonna say, it's like, man, you know, I do kind of like an Oracle to start against this specific opener. Everything gets shut down. Oracle does a ton of damage against all these light units on the ground. So, you know, this is like the one world where that aggression, you're like, okay, maybe we go Oracle first. But as it stands, Harstem handles this really nicely. Loses 2 probes to the Reapers in the main base, but that's just about it. And now this Phoenix, it's not gonna. 1 Phoenix is the loneliest number, right? It's not gonna do a lot by itself, but it is a really nice scout to see what exactly it is that Clem's going for. And unfortunately for Harstem, not going to be too happy about it because it's a Cyclone. It's more Marines moving on to the other side of the map. Lots of anti-air early. Technically, this is something Clem can make something happen with. But it's also very much knife's edge. The moment it swings over, everything that Clem has just falls down.
Yep, but Clem wouldn't be moving out if he wasn't confident that he can make this move out. I was about to say I'd really like to see a couple Stalkers out of Harstem. Harstem is going to lose that pylon right before he can queue up an Immortal. He might have to kill one of his own probes. That would be very sad, obviously, for a probe. But if we can build an Immortal, we are actually in a bit of trouble because, oh, that grenade is perfect as well. Maybe we're going to have to use an early overcharge. I don't know if there's energy, but there's a lot of Terran already in the face of Harstem, and Harstem is indeed going to drop that overcharge. And now with that extra pylon finishing up, he can queue up the Immortal. So it's going to take a little while, though, before that Immortal is out, Bio.
Yeah, and the problem is, as well as Clem, he's not just sitting here content with this army and macroing me home. I mean, he is macroing, but he's sending more across the map, right? This is not just this attack. Phoenix, you're trying to get on top right now. They lift the Cyclones. Marines are falling down, so the Phoenix, they are still there. They're starting to knock some of these units down, but everything on the ground is going to fall down for the most part. Even still, I mean, the Vikings a problem, certainly. And it's the reinforcements. Yeah, they're the problem. Never mind. I was like, it's still looking good for a second, but nope, that second round is really, really good.
But we have the Immortal now. At least we made it until the Immortal sees the light of day. Phoenixes need to be careful here. That medevac is so low on HP, but there is never a freebie against Clem. Clem is so incredibly good and quick. His micro is 10 out of 10. He's going to split off the Liberator. Harstem, I don't think, has any idea of this lip. He's moving the Phoenix back, so maybe he caught a glimpse of it. I mean, that was still a lot of Terran aggression, and normally you were like, well, the Protoss went up to 3 bases, so they have less units. No, this was a 2-base setup for the longest time. Harstem does find the lip, though, so that's an excellent pickoff without taking any damage elsewhere. And that's going to be the moment for Clem that he says, all right, my army is kind of battered and bruised. I need to go home. Harstem weathers the storm, but I think this was a really good indicator of how stressful it is to play against Clem. Because Clem is just so quick, he's so in your face. And you never really have a lot of time to just casually set everything up and play a nice little game of StarCraft. I think playing PvT or ZVT for that matter against Clem has to be one of the most stressful things in video gaming, period.
Yeah, at the end of the day though, Roddy, Harstem's third base is like 30 seconds behind for a Phoenix Colossus type of setup. I think it started like 5:30 instead of like 5 minutes. He's traded evenly in the attack. He's up in workers. He's got his Colossus on the way. And I'm not trying to say this is comfortable. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we talked about it, playing against Clem by itself is really uncomfortable. But at the very least, he's on that next level of stuff, right? And Clem did commit a lot to this early. He's gone double eBay now. Their third base is here. But it's not like there's a strong follow-up that's going to happen in the next minute. You got to wait for Stim. He's going to dive on top of a lot of these Marines. He's got the read on it. I thought there was going to be too much anti-air there, but he knocks down a ton of those Marines, loses one Phoenix for it. I don't know how I feel about this ground move out, though. This is a little more questionable.
Yeah, that almost felt accidental to me, but I don't know if it is. I'm not going to assume that it is. Harstem now has a Colossus in the mix as well. These kind of fights, it looks really good for a Protoss, right? You're like, wow, that's so many Marines dying, but Marines are cheap. And then in the end, you lose a Phoenix. The second Phoenix takes a crazy amount of damage, which means it's going to die very quickly in the future. Like, I actually wouldn't even classify that as a big win for Harstem. It's all right, but you really don't want to do that very often, because the biggest downside of playing Phoenix Colossus is that your follow-up is pretty much always charged because you need it, otherwise your army on the ground is too weak. And if you play Phoenix Colossus into charge, Stalker count is going to be very low and you won't have Blink till forever. So you need something to deal with Vikings, and that's why the Phoenixes are mega important. And even just losing one there at the cost of 4 Marines, probably a better trade for the Terran than it is for the Protoss, even if it doesn't look like that.
Yeah, Harstem needs like one more really nice fight to really be happy in the game. Defending evenly, trading fine, sure, he's got his 4th base up, but it's this next hit coming in from Clem where he's going to be at like 170 suppliers. So he's got his upgrades now, but once you get to the Viking count, that really allows you to deal with it. Like if it's against just Stalkers, 6 Vikings can be manageable depending on what's happening, but against Phoenix Colossus, again, you do want to like 8, 10, and 12 to put yourself in that position. So Clem's getting himself ready for that next attack, 4th base on the way. And the question, so when you talk about PvT, there are transitions you got to worry about, right? There's the Liberator transition we saw in the Spirit Showtime game. There's going into Disruptors as the Terran. There's Ghosts here. And for now, I wouldn't be surprised to see, certainly with War Prism on the way, to see Harstem try to take advantage of having all these Phoenix and having all of these Colossus charged on +1 to see if he can make something happen before Clem is truly ready with the Viking count, with the Ghost and everything out. And he's got great vision of the army, certainly.
Yeah, but it's hard, right? Like a Harstem, if he moves out, then I just don't think that he can really find what he's looking for. I was going to say I'd love to see a second Robo. I think that's kind of the one thing that you really want to get, and he got the second forge very quickly. I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. You don't want to fall too far behind in upgrades against Clem, especially if you don't have any armor upgrades. Your army is just going to melt. You do need that second robot too, because you need to have that potential to switch back into Immortals, to go into Disruptors, to go back into Colossus if you somehow lose your Colossus and kill their Vikings. Like, that path needs to be open. So yeah, I like a lot of the things that Harstem has done so far. Doesn't mean that he's winning. No, he's not quite winning yet, but he's definitely more than competitive, and it's already a strong first game by him.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many PvTs today where it's like, at this point in the game, 10 minutes in, the Terran's up 30 supply and the game's over. Or the Protoss players desperately fighting their way back into it. And part of it is probably is Crimson Court. There are a lot of angles it's kind of hard to attack through, so maybe it lends itself for the first 4 or 5 bases.
Oh, no.
Okay, the whip. Well, that's a problem. That's a lot of supply all of a sudden that Harstem loses, and now there's nothing that Clem has to worry about. So this attack in the front is the only thing that you got to make happen. Blink isn't done for another 10 seconds. Harstem, he's just got to cancel this. And the other fun thing, as we look at what's happening here, Harstem sees double Robo Disruptor, absolutely. If there's one Terran player that I'm not really worried about with disruptors at all, it's got to be Clem, right? He makes these units look so useless 80% of the time.
Yes, but even if shots don't connect, they are still good because they force the Terran to disengage, so they're not firing at your army, and they also force them to stim over and over and over again. And since Clem has made so many Vikings, he doesn't have that many medevacs. Now the first Colossus is a sitting duck and it dies immediately. The Stalker count is a lot higher though. This is where Harstem needs to start thinking about maybe the flanking disruptor, maybe some flanking zealots, but Clem left the Widowmine behind. But you need something. You can't just stare at Clem's army and hope you're gonna win the fight, because no Protoss pretty much ever wins the fight against Clem just by looking at his army. You need something creative, something magical. Maybe we can warp in units from the top left right now as one more Nova falls forward. You can see though how low in HP this Terran army is getting by all these stims. But yeah, you're spot on. The disruptor shots are not connecting yet.
No, they're really, really not. Man, the disruptor from the top flank would do so much work right now as Clem just micros everything's back and says, yeah, you know, Harstem, I've let you get to 4 bases. I've let you get 5th base on the way. I've let you survive into 12 minutes, but that doesn't mean I'm going to make this easy, as Harstem has lost 2,500 more resources than Clem at this point. And yeah, part of it is you're playing a Gateway Man style, and you will trade worst over time. That's why you want to be up a base or two. But that was even still on the Robo side of things. That was even still when Colossus were up. Like, trades have not been great for Harstem at this point. He's trying to force his opponent off the map, but these Widowmines are forcing incredible trades. Ghost as well. And the moment that Harstem backs up even a second, Clem dives forward, makes it so hard for him to find anything. I do like the addition of the Colossus though. If he's able to get there, there's nothing on the sky anymore. No more Vikings in the sky. And this fight actually starting to look really solid for the moment. The concave's good. But Harstem again is going to be forced back. And even if I say it's looking good, Roddy, certainly it's not good enough.
Now, one of the disruptors getting picked off. Clem has a ridiculous amount of units on the map. They're not all here, but they are coming slowly but steady. Clem is sending more and more powerful late-game units to the other side of the map. We're gonna get some Liberators, +3 attackers on the way, +3 armors on the way. And Clem has been landing some good EMPs. Harstem still hanging in there. All he really needs to turn the tide is one sick Nova. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but one flanking disruptor be a one good zealot engagement where you force the units to be stuck and maybe force Clem to pick up these units and the Stalkers can blink forward. Like, there is some hope for the captain, but he needs something to really go his way soon.
It's funny, I looked at that, I'm like, all the Vikings are gone. I like the Colossus transition. No, the Vikings were just on the ground hiding away. He actually, I don't know if Harstem saw that and kind of just failed to see it, but we saw Colossus show up and immediately go down. Clem's been doing such a nice job of really keeping those alive, giving these options available. The supplies are, the army supplies are starting to get just a little bit closer. It's 2-1, but Clem's got 3-2. The upgrades are such a big deal in this game. And even though Harstem's up he's not even up a base. Never mind. Even though Harstem's economy has been decent enough for the time being, these trades for Clem have been so nice. And we're starting to just hit this point where Harstem, he can't afford what he's making anymore. Eventually, this Terran army trades is just gonna run right through him.
The most impressive thing is that we have been witnessing this fight right now unfold in front of our eyes for 2, 3, 4 minutes. I can't really think of a single moment where I felt Clem wasn't looking. It looks like he's always looking at his army. But then you look at the mini-map and you're like, okay, he wasn't, because he has taken 7,000 bases. He's getting sensor towers. He's spending every single penny he has. It's so impressive how quick this kid is. And it just feels that once he gets momentum, he doesn't let go. He's so in your face. This is where the game is going to become incredibly difficult for Harstem, because he's going to have to split up his army and he's going to have to match Clem. But it always feels that Clem is looking in all the right spots. As he finds 2 of those disruptors by themselves, they will get picked off. The Colossus falls, the Immortal falls, and just like that, as Clem is maxed out, he's going to close it out. I mean, what on earth are you supposed to do against a kid who plays like this?
You run over to his house and you unplug his internet cables. That's
solid strat.
Honestly, the only solution I have. I mean, I'm looking at this, and Harstem probably had the best early game of any Protoss player we've seen today. In terms of, he didn't lose five workers, or I guess never there was a laser, but like in general, it feels like for the most part in PvTs, Harstem, this first 7 minutes were probably maybe Showtime game 1, but they were solid. It was okay. Yeah. And then Clem just turns it on. Fights for 5 minutes.
There wasn't one moment where we could say like, oh, that's where Harstem really messed up. That's where he fell apart. It's just that Clem traded it better. And Clem was in his face. He's hitting, as you would say, crossing his T's and dotting his I's. Like he's doing all of it. But what I'm just mostly fascinated by is that it feels that Clem does not make mistakes in the micro department. He doesn't stick around for too long. He doesn't miss any opportunities. He's always right there, right on the edge, where he gives the Protoss players the feeling like, hey, you should fight at Nova. You should blink forward. You should take this fight. And then right when you think this is the fight I want to take, Clem has the perfect setup, so you know that that's not the moment. You have to run back again. And that is just rinse and repeat non-stop for 5 minutes straight. And then you look at the units lost resource tab, and you're like, Harstem lost 5,000 resources more. Well, at least he's still kind of okay, right? But that's where Clem maxes out. That's where Liberators start joining in, and then they will add a bit of extra Terran fun. And then you have a big army with Ghosts in the top left. You have army with Ghosts and Marauders in the center. And it's just so hard to keep up with him. Like, it feels the only way to beat Clem is to get not an okay start, but an amazing start, where Clem is forced to no longer be Clem, and Clem needs to slow down the game and just defend. That's where I think maybe as a Protoss you can get the best of him. But trying to match him and like trying to battle non-stop feels that doesn't end well for any Protoss.
No, it really doesn't. You take a look at Clem in the last month. He's lost 12 total maps against Protoss, and I'm willing to bet at least 10 of them are to max pack. So the dude's on fire, certainly, and we're going to have to see if he's going to be able to continue it on Golden Aura in the upper left. He's up 1 and just looks untouchable. It's Clem.
I think he lost 2 against Nightmare because he played the American Weekly and he lost to Nightmare in that one. So in the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the captain of the Shopify Rebellion. I think he played a good first game. It just wasn't enough. Can we turn things around? This is Harstem.
Now, Roddy, one of the things you talked about in that last game is like, man, disruptor flank, right? That would be really good here. And I feel like that's almost what you got to do. If you give Clem a straight up front to back fight with how mobile the army is, especially if you're just paying attention the entire time, with how fast Stim makes your units, he's never going to, very rarely is he going to eat a shot just if you give him that front to back attacking lane. But if you force him into a position, right, get some zealot flanks, get some disruptor flanks, maybe something like that. I'm with you. I think that's what Harstem has to start looking for a little bit more, and it's hard. All right, that's a lot of multitasking asked to make sure that your disruptors are everywhere where they need to be, or flanking storms or zealots or whatever it is. Like, it's not easy. But just giving Clem these straight front to back fights, we saw what happened in game 1.
Yeah. You often mention, and I think that's a very solid point, that robo production time is incredibly valuable as a Protoss, especially if you only have 1 robo, but even if you have 2 robos, it's still so important. You want to be building Immortals, Disruptors, Colossus, etc. So if you then do make a Prism, it is very important to get value out of that Prism. And I think Harstem will really be kicking himself or flying that Prism into the main base, letting a Widowmine. Widowmines are a bit easier to spot these days, connect, and a single hit of a turret and a Widowmine connection is good enough to shut down that Prism. I think Harstem will probably think, like, man, I actually played good. Imagine if I don't lose that Prism and I just siege it up somewhere in a safe spot on the low ground, and I can warp in 6-8 Zealots, run those into the third. That's where even Clem will have a hard time microing everything to perfection, right? Because as a Terran, you simply cannot micro Marines, Marauders, Medevacs to perfection when you're having to deal with Zealot run-bys and you're in the face of the Protoss at the same time. So it is sad to think that almost your entire game fell apart because you lost the Prism. But when you're playing against the best in the world, and that is absolutely what Clem is in this matchup, yeah, there is no room for errors, and losing a Prism like that is a massive error, even if it's only 200 minerals.
Yeah, you know, I talked to Trigger quite a bit about StarCraft, about whatever, because he's a great guy, and he thinks deeply about the game. And one of the things he likes to talk about when you talk about PvT is like, look, a Terran army against a Protoss army, good majority of points in the game, equally skilled players. The Terran army has more power to it in a lot of situations. So you really want to make sure that the Terran is never allowed to do that, is never allowed to just focus on their army and do exactly what we saw Clem do for the last 5 minutes. Now, of course, it's really hard to make that happen to Clem because he's so fast. And even if you are forcing him to multitask, he's still probably going to be microing where he wants to be. But that's what you got to do, right? You got to make it so that he's not as comfortable. But for right now, Clem's the one that's trying to make Harstem as uncomfortable as possible. It's 6 Marines. It's a Widow Mine in the medevac. Cyclones onto the other side. And for the second game in a row, it's early aggression from Clem into a Stargate play.
Yep, and last game it already got very scary, by the way, where Harstem was supply blocked for a split second, and that Immortal couldn't quite get produced in time. But in the end, Harstem took a good enough fight at home. The problem with a good enough fight at home is that Widowmine gets lifted, by the way. Phoenix cannot get healed up immediately. Clem saves the Widowmine, of course he does. Can the Adept Shot land? Yes, alright. So at least no more Widowmine to worry about. But that Widowmine did manage to at least get one Adept kill, even if it didn't fire it. Let the rest of the army focus on the Adept. We need to heal up the pylon there, by the way. That's exactly what Harstem does. I mean, Clem is picking up units non-stop while the projectiles are flying to the unit. Come on, BO. This is not fair anymore. What the hell?
No, I think we just need to nerf Clem. Terran's fine, but Clem, just the value he gets out of these small units, you gotta lift him because otherwise he's gonna save him. And even still, I mean, we're gonna see the depower on the battery there. The Robo, sure, fine. I think Harstem's just dead. Like, straight up. What are you supposed to do against this guy?
I mean, Clem is saving every single Marine while Stalker and Adept Shots, projectiles that is, are flying towards it. Clem is picking them up in the medevac before they even connect, so nothing is dealing damage. We have an Immortal that's about to come out. The problem is the Immortal will not kill the Liberator. Liberator's gonna siege up. This is where the Phoenixes really need to kill this Lib as quickly as possible. Clem is trying to body block the Immortal to make sure that it stays within the circle. That does not work. I mean, Harstem really is battling as hard as he's possibly capable of. And you know what? It is actually kind of a hole. It will not feel good for Harstem, but you know what? He's up 4 or 5 workers. He lost 9 workers there, but he's still up a couple. It never feels good to lose 3 Phoenixes, and yeah, you could have had 6. 6 Phoenixes would have been amazing. He lost 3 of them. Kudos to Harstem for not completely falling apart there, because per usual, Clem micro that almost to perfection.
Yeah, I was kind of convinced Harstem was dead. He might still be in another 5 minutes, but at least he's allowed to play the game now, right? At least he's got his 3rd base on the way, adding in Immortals. There should be Colossus getting started. And Clem did commit a lot to this, right? It was a Liberator, 3 Cyclones, 12 Marines, a medevac, like a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, Harstem, nice job on holding. This army that Clem has shouldn't be able to break the 3rd base. Certainly not. But, you know, this is just step 1, Roddy.
Try to fight this. When it's only 4 or 5 Marines, a Cyclone, and a Viking, I think that's absolutely where you can fight. Now, a few more units of Clem are showing up, but this is where the Phoenixes can shine. Bright like a diamond. I often think back of them in the same way as the thought of Raiders in Warcraft 3, where you can basically throw Ensnare, but instead of Ensnare, it is Graviton Beam, and Harstem is doing exactly that. He is going to punish Clem for sticking around a tiny bit too long. I mean, the captain is actually playing a damn good series so far. Will that be enough? That we don't know. But it is safe to say that he is not just going to sit here and let Clem roll all over him. But Clem with a retarget of the Widow Mines multiple times in the end connects with the Phoenix. This is maybe where Harstem needs to go home. Just crank out a Colossus or 2. Try to get an Observer or something, right? Take your time. I think he wants to just lift that SCV one time to delay the 3rd base. I like it. You know, Harstem is playing well. He needs to play well. He needs to play out of his freaking mind if he wants to make this a competitive series, but he's doing that.
Yeah, you know, I really like this concept as well. Harstem's, he's got Colossus on the way. He's going to get a second. He's eventually going to get up to 3 Colossus. And given how this game has gone, again, Clem committed a lot to tech early, which we talked about it in game 1, kind of slows down your Viking production quite a bit. So if Harstem can go get his Phoenix count up to where it needs to be, get charged maybe, get 3 Colossus, get just enough gateway units to buffer for everything, I really do like the concept of Harstem trying to move out at like 8 minutes. This drop is not going to get found in time. To prevent it in the main base, sure, but he's not going to knock it down. And now Clem, he's got a lot on the map once again. This should be something Harstem can defend, but just because it should be doesn't mean it's easy. He's going to try to get on top of the Colossus. No. Instead, immediately overcharged, not ready in time. And now 1 Colossus, 1 Immortal here. Clem's going to get on top of things again. Widow Mines, damage to the Colossus. Don't knock it down. And it looks like Harstem will defend, but already 3 Colossus going down here is far more than Harstem ever wanted to lose.
Yeah, that was sad for Harstem. Maybe he misclicked or something, because he obviously should have microed it towards the right. That's where he had the battery. There are Widow Mines hidden underneath the side blockers. The Widow Mines will fight perfect connections. The army of Clem is very low on HP though. There was a moment where Harstem almost gave too much respect to Clem. He saw that big army. He knew he already denied the drop, but he was just convinced because it's Clem, there is more to it, right? There has to be more. But that was actually it. And if the Phoenixes would have just been there with the Colossus, I don't think he ever loses a Colossus there. So that was a bit of a shame. Harstem has now been stuck for a little while. He's sitting on 56 workers. He's just trying to get as many units out as possible. He's got a lot of gateways, but he does not have a Twilight count, so it kind of feels that he just wants to win the game with, yeah, what feels like a Wings of Liberty push, right? Couple Phoenixes, 2 Colossus, and then a bunch of very basic gateway units. I have the feeling that at this point, Clem has just made Harstem dizzy, and Harstem has kind of lost track of this game as, yeah, this just doesn't look like anything we normally see. No Twilight Council, no charge. It's just Phoenix, Colossus, and the most basic gateway units imaginable.
I kind of like it, right? There's just not a lot here for Clem that deals with these Colossus well. Problem is there's no observer, so these Widow Mines are delaying this push for forever. And now a bunch of Zealots are here again. There's no charge, but their job is just to buffer, to buy time. And this full surround from Clem. This is a hard position for Harstem to fight into. But for the time being, he's kiting back against it really nicely. The Colossus are still alive. More Zealots are going to warp in. 11 SCVs have gone down. He's turning it more front to back. And I mean, it's still hard, absolutely. But Harstem's kind of making this work a little bit.
It is sick, but Harstem's army just kind of sucks besides the 2 Colossus and the Immortal. But yeah, as long as the 2 Colossus and the Immortal is alive, there is potential here. Because those units, yeah, they can deal with Stimbuyer, they can deal with a Ghost, they can deal with a Marauder. Slow Zealots and Stalkers are not going to add a whole lot. Harstem knows that he still needs a tiny bit more. EMPs land, first Colossus dies. That is sad. The second Colossus is very low on HP. Vikings will now just probably go for that Warp Prism as Harstem tries to warp in a few more Stalkers. Clem is running low on units, but the final few units are going to be so much better than the units that remain of Harstem. And after 10 minutes and 34 seconds, a GG will be called as Harstem dropped to 2 army supply. Another very exciting game with a lot of cool moments. It just, I think at one point, Clem is just so overwhelming, so stressful. He's so intense. And he's so in your face that I think Harstem kind of lost track of where exactly he was in the game. And I think a real telling point was where he left all those 6 Phoenixes on the right side of his main thinking, there is more. But that was actually it. I mean, then that it killed one of the Colossus. And that's really a shame, because imagine how close this fight now already was. If you add one more Colossus to this push, probably goes Harstem's way.
Or even if you... Harstem's done this 2 games in a row now, I've kind of noticed, where he gets the Stalkers out. Obviously, no blink this time. But he gets the 1 target fire on a Stalker. And then he doesn't target fire. He's not shift clicking them down, so he's not getting the second one. And then Stalkers waste like 1 or 2 rounds of shots on not Vikings. And then the Colossus dies when... if you saw the end of that fight right there, the last Viking went down pretty much as the last Colossus went down. If you knock that down a little bit quicker... It was a nice save from Harstem to keep one of the Colossus alive, but if you knock that down a little bit quicker, you can get another warp in. Maybe eventually you don't lose the Warp Prism. The Colossus stays alive a little longer, and who knows, maybe it happens. It's a lot to think about, though, in the game. I mean, Clem does not make it easy.
It feels so cruel to even criticize Harstem for like anything, because you just see the intensity that Clem is bringing to these games. How quickly Clem is in your face. The moment you have a couple of adepts, you have 2 adepts and a Stalker, and you're like, all right, I don't have a lot of DPS, but it adds up over time, right? Well, wrong if the shots don't even connect, because Clem is a sicko who picks up every single Marine and a Reaper and a Cyclone and a Widow Mine when projectiles are traveling to the unit. That's just like, come on, like how can we ever criticize anyone losing to someone like Clem, who is able to just completely nullify the damage of these basic gateway units? It's been a fun series so far. Let's hope that the captain gets 1 on the board, because I feel he really deserves it, BO. He's battling, he's fighting, he's doing his absolute best, and I want this series to go on. If there is one series today, then I want to see it go on for a little while longer. It is this one. In the top left side, he's down 0-2, but there is so much fighting spirit in this man today. Shopify, Rebellions, Harstem.
This may not be fighting spirit. In fact, it's Ghost River, but this guy in the upper right is fighting so well. For Team Liquid, it's Clem.
Is fighting spirit the Brood War map?
Yes, it's the famous Brood War map.
I figured that was a joke there, and sounds vaguely familiar. But I'm a pleb, mate. I just played Warcraft 3, you know me?
I have installed Brood War, I think, on my PC like once, and I played like one campaign mission, and that was about it. I'm unfortunately, and I know this is making Team Liquid mad, I was never much of a Brood War guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's blasphemy for me as well, but I think I've played maybe 10 games of Brood War in my life or something. I had an experience once a long time ago at a Dutch equivalent of what is DreamHack, but it wasn't called DreamHack. And Red was there, and I didn't know who Red was, but everyone's like, yeah, that's Red. He's really good in Brood War. And I was already one of the better Warcraft 3 players in the Netherlands. I was like, what is Brood War? And you should have seen the nerds turn at me and their faces just go pale. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, well, what is Brood War? I've never heard of this, because I only played the games that my big brother used to play, and he was all into Red Alert and Command & Conquer. So that's when I played a bit of Brood War, and then when the Remastered came out, Remastered is, yeah, I actually had a sick game with Zombie Grub. That was a really fun game. I was spamming Zealots and Dragoons, and Zombie Grub was meching. We battled for like 25 minutes. In the end, Zombie Grub won, and I was like, all right, that's about all the Brood War that I can handle. And I had one guy that made Mutalisk against me when I was playing ladder. I thought I was playing really well, and Brood War is so hard, right? Because you cannot group anything. But I felt that I was doing a really good job, and in the end, I got him. And then instead of saying GG, he said unsubbed. And I was like, what?
I think I heard about that, actually.
I was like, what? Really? You're angry at me for just playing a game of Brood War? Like, I'm sorry. Hey, this is a Reaper kill, by the way. I don't think there is any high ground, low ground to save. Maybe a grenade, but no. Not even Clem can nail that 10 out of 10 times. So what a start for Harstem.
Hey, there we go. Already doing better, but where do we think... So this map is a map that is very short natural to natural. It's very solid for a bunch of tank pushes. But where do you think Clem goes here, right? He's up 2. He's got room to play with. For now, it's just a high ground expand, but does he try to play into the map at all? Does he let Harstem come to him? Like, what are the thoughts here, Roddy?
I'm not totally certain. Maybe he feels that a quick Widowmine drop is the way to go, and it's a little bit unfortunate for Harstem, who has opened up Stargate in back-to-back games where, you know, Widowmine drops are not good. It's actually not going to be a Widowmine drop. This time around, Harstem has gone for the 1 gate fast expand into a quick Robo with a second defensive gate. So a quick Observer will come out. We're going to have a quick Immortal if we feel like we need it. And since Clem is once more building a Cyclone and a Medevac, I think that quick Immortal can actually come in really handy. Do you think we still need a battery? Oh, Harstem has already answered that question. Harstem says yes, we do still need a battery, because this is Clem, and apparently my units don't deal damage when he picks them up over and over again.
Now, unfortunately for Harstem here, you talked about the prospect of an Immortal. It's going to be a second Observer, which generally is great, right? Keeps you safe, but Clem is hitting very, very quickly. I'm a little surprised to not see a 3rd gateway down. We've seen Hero do a lot of these Robo openers. 3-gate Robo, you put some pressure on, gives you really solid defensive power. All these things are nice, but just 2-gate Robo for now. And the big problem is this Reaper wall. It's going to be a shutdown pylon, right? It's really 1 gateway production right now. This is already getting something pretty nice for Clem.
Yeah, this is annoying, by the way, because Harstem's army is obviously very slow. He does not have Blink, so Clem says, you know what, I'm just going to go for a tiny drop in the main base. Clem actually moved commanding there for a little while. I think Clem was busy microing his Widowmine and maybe the Cyclone at the same time. So he made a bit of an uncharacteristic micro error there, but Clem did save his Cyclone, and he can continue to be aggressive here. Maybe even got the Observer. Yeah, he got an Observer and a Stalker, so missed micro in the main, but Clem micro to perfection on the low ground. And he will probably say, that's good enough, because I am not afraid of a 2-base Protoss.
Now, here's the problem, though, right? You talked about getting a Robo, getting Immortals quickly to give yourself some really solid defensive acumen. I'm looking at the Cyclone. There's no way the Cyclone dies. This is Clem. Nope. You got to kill the Medevac first. It's disgusting. But what I was going to point out was Harstem's had that Robo done for quite a while, and there has not been an Immortal in production until right now. So I don't know if it was the stress. I don't know if he broke for a little bit getting other things, but he's not going to have this 1 to 2 Immortal setup. He's going to have 1 Immortal, certainly, but it's going to be late. He's not going to have a second one, and that just makes this push from Clem maybe just that much stronger. The question, though, Roddy, is like, when does he hit? He got damage done with this, certainly, as we see the heart on the map, but is it a stim timing? Is that what he waits for? Stim combat shields moving like 730 or so? Is there room for him to get more done before he gets all of his bio upgrades?
I actually feel this would be a great game to go for Interference Matrix, and he hasn't fired it up yet. But against these quick Robo openings, where the strength of the Protoss army really only comes from the Robo units, so I think this is a moment where you can go for Matrix, whether you planned that in the beginning of the game or not. I feel like it would make some sense to me. Yeah, I don't know yet. Let's see where it goes. I did love that you were also full of conviction, by the way, that that you were convinced, there we go, that those Cyclones were not going to die, because I also didn't think they were going to die, and I was like, oh, these are not the fights to take. Like, you can battle Clem if you've got Zealot Charge. You can battle Clem if you've got Blink. Or when it's just those basic gateway units in the middle of nowhere, it's like, yeah, let's not take those fights, because there really is just no happy ending to it. Clem is already moving out with 2 tanks, 2 very healthy Cyclones, because he repaired them. He has a Raven in the mix to maybe drop another turret. And if these tanks siege up in a scary spot, Harstem is once more going to be in trouble. Maybe he just go for it immediately, like that tank is kind of in range of the Immortal, but he doesn't go for it. The moment you disengage, though, it's going to be so difficult to ever get these tanks.
And the problem for Harstem, right? This was a naked Robo. There's no Twilight. Charge is only just now getting started. It's not like there's a Stargate, you have Phoenix or something. There is not a lot here. There's some gateway units, certainly, but you're looking at 3 tanks. Unless there's some really good healing. 3 tanks, 1 shot at Colossus. This is a hard position to attack into. And Clem, the longer this goes, he's got a 4. No, sorry, he's still got 3 tanks, but the longer this goes, the more rally shows up here. Colossus is going to run forward. You got to knock this tank down pretty quickly. And 1 tank will fall. Immortal doing a nice job. Harstem targeting down the Marines as well with this Colossus. It's a start, Roddy, but it's not an end. And with this Immortal going down as well, it just becomes so hard for Harstem.
Yep. I think Harstem is already running out of steam, as sad as it is. The Immortal could not get healed up there by the battery. This had to go a bit too far away. Obviously, Clem with the perfect siege positioning saved one of the Colossus. That's awesome, but at this point, there is no second overcharge available. You know, someone told me that they're always available. They're not always available, BO. Very often, but not always. And without an overcharge, it feels that this Protoss army is just going to stand here and get absolutely slaughtered by the overwhelming favorite. To win it all this time around, when Sero's in the military, Raynor is in Korea, who is there to stop this French kid? Some of you guys hoped that it was going to be the Captain Harstem, and it could perhaps still be with a magical run through the lower bracket. But here in the upper bracket, I am afraid it's not going to go Harstem's way. GG! Clem takes care of business and will advance into the top 4 of the upper bracket with just a stunning...